John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning and welcome to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. It is August 11th. Here I'm in Mississippi and we're with my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks. As always, we've got a packed show for you today. We're very excited. We're going to talk a little college football at the beginning of the hour here, talk some conference realignment, stuff like that. Then we got a big race out there in Virginia. Dad's there at Colonial Downs, so we'll talk about that with some of the guys out there in Colonial Downs. We'll switch to some football with Sheriff Clarke, and we'll end, as always, with the UFC. Godzilla Wins and GodzillaWins.com is for entertainment purposes only. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537. Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming, 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org in Massachusetts. Call 877-G-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Kansas, New Hampshire, 888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or visit opgr.org in Oregon. If you are in a state where DraftKings is legal, this is what I need you to do. Go ahead, go to DraftKings.com and sign up right now. You get to use one of the greatest promo codes in the history of DraftKings promo codes. This is the promo code Godzilla. So you go to DraftKings.com. This is for new users. You sign up for that promo code Godzilla, and you can take $5, turn it into $150 in free play. So a $5 bet gets you $150 in free play, and then you can do that with that whatever you would like. So if you're in a state where DraftKings is offered, go to DraftKings.com/sign up. Sign up now. Promo code Godzilla, $5 get you $150 in free bets. Okay, we want to welcome my father, the Godzilla Truth, John Fredericks, and senior writer, senior contributor to GodzillaWins.com. He is grinding on soccer right now, but he's going to switch to some college football, which we're going to talk about a little later. That's Dan Angell. Dan, how are you?
Doing okay. Fortunately safe from the disaster that's happening in Maui.
Yeah, so I want to give you a couple minutes to talk about that for our listeners who might not be aware or who haven't heard from someone who actually lives in Hawaii. So you've been in Hawaii now, you moved there in July. This devastating wildfire on the island of Maui has just been a totally devastating in so many different ways. So if you could just talk for a minute or two about what that's been like since you're in the state of Hawaii right now.
Yeah, fortunately I'm on Oahu, so Amy and I haven't been touched personally as far as having to flee or anything, but it's just been devastating seeing what's happened on that island, how that area has, like, there's parts of it where one side of the street looks completely fine and the other side of the street is just devastated by wildfires. Some people have had to flee their homes, head to other parts of the island. Normally on Oahu, there's a 30-day rental period for rental homes, and the mayor of Honolulu just waived that so that people from Maui can actually come to Oahu and find shelter. So if there's any way that you can help those people, do whatever you can to donate whatever you can to the island. It's just really sad to watch.
Yeah, we want to encourage anyone who wants to get involved, in whatever way they see fit with the fires going on there. We see these fires all the time now in California on the West Coast, and I think we get desensitized to it a little bit. There was the fires in Australia, I think, a couple years ago, which were also equally as devastating. But a place like Hawaii we haven't really seen that, and it's compounded by the fact that they are landlocked on an island. So it's a lot harder to get to a safe place. So we want to lift up our thoughts with the people of Maui as they continue to fight the wildfires. Okay, so we'll stay in the West Coast, I think, a little bit here for some conference realignment talk. We're going to be talking college football. This is what we're doing pretty much now until December. College football and NFL for the most part. We're all getting excited about it. You can go to GodzillaWins.com, find all of that information. We've got Brian Butcher, who's already writing his UGA Behind the Hedges column. He actually wrote, so Brian's been writing for us for about a year with the UGA stuff, and he's one of like the biggest homers. I mean, he loves UGA, but UGA fans are crazy. So he wrote one article this week that was like why UGA won't repeat a national title. And it's a great article. It's like 5 reasons why, he might be a little skeptical as a UGA fan. And I'm telling you, he's been writing like why UGA will win every game forever for a year. He writes one article like this, and all of a sudden the comments just blow up. They're like, oh, this guy's an idiot. Like this, clearly this guy doesn't understand the roster. And it's like, oh my God, here we go.
Hey, let me ask you about the comment section. So the way that works in our comment section is you can't get it on your phone, right? Or you can't get it on an iPhone.
No. So you have to be on a laptop. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I have to be on a laptop. Hey, where's Nate?
Oh yeah. So Nate is not here this week. He's out.
Hashtag free Nate.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Hashtag free Nate. Yeah. He should be back next week, but he's not with us now, which is too bad because he's out there on the West Coast as well. So let's talk a little conference realignment then. The Pac-12 is now the Pac-4. USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington go to the Big Ten. I think 4 others like Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah jump to the Big 12. The ACC is considering adding Stanford and Cal. The Pac-4 can't be a conference unless they have 8 teams. They don't know what they're going to do. Maybe the Mountain West absorbs a couple. I'll start with Dan because Dan, you've always been pretty locked in, I know, to the Big Ten and college football in general. Like, what do you think about this college realignment? Are we going to get to the point where there's basically just 2 conferences, or at some point will this just stop?
I mean, at some point it has to stop because common sense has to prevail at some point. I mean, I know we've gone way past it in so many ways, but eventually some of these schools are just going to get sick of this kind of travel. The fans are not going to put up with this nonsense forever. And I'm sorry, but Oregon, Washington, there's no reason for them to go out and play Rutgers. I mean, who cares? Washington against Maryland, big deal. Like, I mean, you look at some of these changes that have made. I mean, West Virginia, for example, you look at their schedule for this year. They've played Pittsburgh and Penn State as non-conference games, and they'll go out and play schools in Texas for their conference game. I mean, what sense does this make? It's all
and the thing is, those are the 2 biggest games of the season for the West Virginia Mountaineers. Like, we got season tickets. Obviously, my Jack's brother Joe's there now. He just went out there today, and we're not going to see him again until Thanksgiving. But the biggest game, the biggest road game is Penn State. The biggest home game is Pitt. Neither of them are in a conference. And then when he's playing baseball, they got to go from Morgantown. They got to go to what? Arizona, Colorado, Baylor. Yeah. It's like you can't.
That starts next year for Arizona and Colorado, but I know they play Baylor Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah,
like, I mean, if Neil Brown were to go 3-9 and go 0-9 in the Big 12, he's probably still keeping his job because the 3 would be against the local schools, and West Virginia fans would be like, "You beat Pitt, we're thrilled."
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Too
I
funny.
think that there are a lot of different ways that this can shake out. Obviously, this all has to do with TV contracts and money. The Pac-12 turned down a $30 million per team TV contract because they thought they were worth about 50 at the time from ESPN, and that started the downfall. If these teams can't get their money in the TV contracts, they're going to leave for bigger conferences that can offer them a more lucrative salary. Also, in the bylaws of the Pac-12, it was incredibly weak, so it's easy for them to leave. Like, for instance, the Mountain West, in order to leave the Mountain West, you have to have like a $30 million buyout, 25, something like that. So like Boise State and Nevada are not going to jump ship to the Pac-12. They don't have that kind of cash. So, you know, if you're a smaller conference, you have to have something in the bylaws. And some of these smaller conferences, I mean, they take pride in I think being like, the American has been the American forever. And I don't think anyone in the American is leaving. But you just, you know, you never know. And the other thing that's really important to keep in mind here, I think, is the smaller sports, tennis, soccer, you know, all these sports that play during the week and that don't have the budget to get from Washington to Illinois. And it's, you know, I saw one coach mentioned a sort of potential solution where he's like, listen, why don't we just do away with the conferences for football? Just make basically two leagues, just like how Notre Dame's an independent, but they're in other conferences for other sports. Keep them in their regional conferences for the smaller sports. That way, you've got football, which plays once a week. We can fly from Washington to Florida if we need to, but it's much harder for that to happen if you're, you know, Stanford, and now all of a sudden you're in the ACC and you're playing Miami in tennis in July, or it wouldn't be July, but you know, May or something like
crazy.
that.
It's crazy, and it's all driven by, you know, it's all driven by the financial considerations, but the mismanagement, guys, of the Pac-12. I mean, I don't know where these guys went to school, but the whole thing was a clown show from beginning to end, how they mismanaged it. And then, you know, look, they wanted a linear television schedule, right? Apple went to them, they guaranteed them what? First 25 million, then they went to 30 million, but Apple's a streaming service and they think that's the wave of the future. And look, we all stream games now, right? We all do it. But they didn't like the numbers. They didn't think it was going to be there. But I'll tell you guys this. We're just in the process of moving to Pittsburgh. Get this, right? I said this on the TV show. So, you know, Ann says, hey, set the internet up, TV, right? So I call up, I'm like, well, I want the satellite, the satellite dish. I prefer that. Oh no, they're not allowed here. No satellite dishes in this townhome community. Sorry. Like, okay, I get it. What's the cable of choice, right? Fios, Verizon, Comcast, was it? Oh no, there's no cable. We didn't lay the lines here. There's no cable here. I'm like, so there's no dishes, no cable. What do I do? They're like, we have high-speed internet, Ethernet in every room. You hook the Ethernet cord up to your TV, you stream everything. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the wave of the future. You know, I mean, if you want to watch the NFL and you don't want to be locked to your regional team this year, you got to buy YouTube TV. And that, I mean, like, that's just kind of where it's going. So I think that a lot of these conferences need to pretty much just embrace some of that stuff, because whether they're going to be on ABC or not is irrelevant, because what they need to be on is ESPN Plus and ESPN3 and Paramount Plus, because that's really where everybody's going at some point, unless you're in an area like where I am, where it's hard to get reliable internet, although I have more reliable internet now. That is where everything is kind of going. But the one thing about this conference realignment that I really try to pump the brakes on is I don't want to sound super old. I think sometimes we resist this change and it just seems like chaos, but conferences have been realigning since the beginning of time. I mean, not the beginning of time, but since college football. You know, Georgia Tech used to be in the SEC.
True.
These people, these teams, they move around a lot. It seems like a lot of chaos right now. And it does feel like, you know, there's only about 3 conferences that are going to matter, maybe 4 in the future. The Big 12, of course, is trying to pump up their numbers as well after losing Texas and Oklahoma. But I do think that this is probably where it's going in the future. What we lose is that tradition. Like, I mean, I thought the Apple Cup was cool. I mean, I liked watching that. You're still going to get it, but you won't get the gravitas of it being a Pac-12 game, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are they going to do at the Rose Bowl?
I mean, it's just going to become a playoff quarterfinal or semifinal game. I mean, that matchup's dead.
Well, yeah, but Jack's right, because remember when I grew up, there was the Southwest Conference.
Yep.
That conference doesn't even exist. And
yeah,
that had
Big 12 swallowed it up.
Yeah, they had like Texas, Oklahoma.
It was the 8 Texas
Cougars.
schools,
The Cougars were in it. Baylor, Mustangs, right? SMU Mustangs. Yeah. And that's just gone. But when you talk about the ACC conference and you talk about Stanford going to the ACC, and Jack, you nailed it. I mean, the ACC stands for Atlantic Coast Conference. Stanford's in California. I mean, it's crazy. Pacific. Yeah, it's crazy.
And the Pac-12 really screwed themselves with their hubris too, because they had an opportunity to add SMU and another school a while ago to sort of bolster their numbers, and they didn't want to because they have this sort of academic standard thing that they go by as well. And so the land grant institutions, the public institutions like Boise State, which used to be a junior college, they're not interested in that. Or they weren't anymore. They're not a conference, or they might not be now. So the total mismanagement of the Pac-12, I think, is well documented. There's a reason it blew up. And this is just like any other, I think, business, just led poorly into the future with a resistance to change and a sort of just a total hubris about who they are as a conference, and what they can offer in terms of value.
I want to get to what you just said in a minute, right? There's a huge difference in academic standards, right? And it's not just NCAA. Like my son, your brother was telling me about a young fellow that was committed to Stanford, but then he didn't, in the senior year, whatever, he didn't get the grades, so he just went to some other school in the Southeast Conference, Mississippi State. This is for baseball. So that he met the NCAA rules, whatever that is, 2.0, but he didn't meet the Stanford rules. So they do have, and so they just said, hey, you can't have your scholarship bought, right? Simple. So he goes somewhere else.
But my thing is like, who cares what the academics of standards of who you're playing is? Like, I mean, if you got academic standards because you're Stanford and you need student athletes who are students first, that's fine. But what does it matter what Boise State is doing? I mean, as long as I guess the argument is like, well, if they don't have academic standards, then they get a leg up, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, I'm pretty sure Boise State, Stanford, I think they'll be okay. Like, I think as a matchup, probably it won't be Boise State winning by 100 every year.
Right.
So,
but I mean, it did used to mean something. Like the Big Ten, one of their rules has long been that you have to be a member of the AAU in order to even get consideration. And the ACC has had similar standards with their academic institution. So it should matter a little bit, because these are supposed to be universities first and athletic teams second.
They are. And growing up, when I thought of Michigan, I thought of a school that was very difficult to get into. And so the student athletes there, I assumed, same thing with Notre Dame, these were exceptional students as well. But with the changes in college football, the landscape, the NIL deals, the transfer portal, I mean, I think we're going to get to the point where this is basically just a sport, and these teams are just brands, and we're just going to have to abandon the idea that there's any type of university other than the sort of tradition going on. Not that these student athletes don't learn things, they do, but I do think that going into the future, we're basically looking at a separate sport, especially for college football, which is just a multi-million-dollar, maybe billion-dollar industry. Now, Dad, this stuff keeps me up at night all the time. And one of the ways to get to sleep is with Healthy Cells REM sleep. How can people who need to get to sleep get involved with this?
I tell you what, the other day, I take it every night and I get about 6.5, but I got to get a solid night's sleep or I just can't function the next day. And 2 nights ago, I just forgot to take it. I went out to dinner with Patty Lyman, a friend of mine, and went back and just, was tired, laid down, was out, forgot, put my mask on, forgot to take it. I got up the next day. I tossed and turned all night. I didn't get in that deep sleep. I felt like crap. Go to healthycell.com. This is going to be the best night's sleep you've ever had. Go to healthycell.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla. Get REM sleep, REM. Comes in a little package. You open it, you down it about a half hour before you go to bed. And here's what it's going to do. It's all natural, not habit forming, but it supports your 4 stages of sleep. And this is real, right? And you don't need to take it for a month or 2 weeks before it kicks in. One night, done. You're going to take it the first night and you're going to fall into the deepest sleep you've had in a while. And you're going to get in that dream sleep where you get all these dreams, which is whatever that deep sleep level is, for 4 or 5, whatever. And then you're going to wake up refreshed. And I travel with him. As I say, one night I didn't have it. I felt like crap the next day, because then what happens is your body wants that deep sleep. And what REM sleep does, it supports all the 4 functions of sleep. You take something like ZQuil, that's fine. You'll fall asleep, but that's it. It doesn't put you in that deep sleep and back that like you need it. So go to healthycell.com/Godzilla, REM sleep, promo code Godzilla. You're going to get 20% off. You're going to get the best night sleep you've ever had.
Absolutely. We want to always thank Healthy Cell for partnering with us there. So look, I got about 8-9 minutes here. And what I really want to do with the college football, since the season hasn't started, we're just going to look at a couple futures for 2 big conferences here. That's the Big Ten and the SEC for the 2023 season. Before we do that, though, I just want to maybe just talk about championship winners. Some of the big odds for just teams to maybe win the whole national championship here. And I'm going to list a couple, and then you guys give me some live reactions there. And then I think, Dan, will go to the Big Ten, since that has been one of your beats in the past, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. So national championship winner, UGA plus 215, obviously, Michigan plus 800, Alabama plus 600, LSU plus 1100, Ohio State plus 650, USC plus 1600, Clemson 18-1. Based on some of those reactions, some other stuff, Dan, like, is there some good value in any of this, or is it just UGA at 2-1?
I mean, I think Clemson has got some really good value at 18-1. I mean, you look at what they're going to see in the ACC, it's really not that difficult. I mean, that schedule, I know they open with Duke. I'm pretty sure they get Florida State at home this year. So if Clemson is able to get the quarterback play that they frankly did not have with DJU last year, then they're probably going to run through this schedule. I mean, the one game that I can see maybe tripping them up is at NC State because of the Wolfpack's defense, but Clemson should be favored in most, if not all, the games they play. And then you get into that playoff, I mean, you're holding the ticket with a team at 18-1. That's really solid.
I tend to agree with you there. Go ahead, Dad. Now I'll go.
I love Michigan plus 800. I think this is if you're looking for a value play, this is the overlay of the card. You look at this team on paper. This is a powerful team. I mean, they're going to have a great defense. They're going to win the Big Ten. They're going to be able to throw the football, move. I think if there's anybody that could beat UGA, Michigan, I can't believe this team is 8-1. So that's my play. If you're looking for value here to win the national championship, Michigan, great opportunity, I think.
My problem with Michigan is they can't ever get past these SEC schools, and I mean, in the Big Ten, I think I'm more worried about Ohio State than I am Michigan this year. I think Ohio State probably has a better opportunity to get to that level. I just, Michigan's such a perennial disappointment.
The big game's in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, but I mean, Ohio State could win in Ann Arbor. I mean, no offense to Michigan fans, but I've certainly seen it happen in the past.
Yeah, if they don't, Ryan Day might be looking for a new job.
Yeah, for real. I mean, Michigan's not a bad pick at plus 800. I love Clemson at 18-1, Dan. I'm right there with you because all they need is quarterback play. That last year was a fluke in some ways, how Clemson played. They're not going to play that way forever. Like, it's not all of a sudden Dabo Swinney doesn't know what he's doing and Clemson stinks. I mean, that's just not going to happen. They're going to rebound. And had they had even a remotely successful season last year, they'd be 9-1, 8-1, 6.5-1. And so that 18-1 ticket is just, I mean, it's really nice at the beginning of the year. And if they rip off 5 wins, it's going to go from 18-1 to like 8-1 almost immediately. So I like that ticket as well.
I don't know if it'll jump that much because their first 5 games are Duke, Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic, Florida State, and Syracuse. The only one of those that's even remotely losable is Florida State.
I don't know. Clemson has always had a checkered past with Syracuse football.
Yeah, but see, that's why
every time they play Syracuse, they're just sweating out a win.
Syracuse is their bogey team. You're right.
Mm-hmm. But that's the exact reason why I don't like Clemson. Because you look at the 5 or 6 first games they reeled off. I mean, those are not even competitive games for them. So what good is it? What good is the record winning when you're not playing, either equal or over your head in order to get better? So that's why I don't think if they were 18-1 or 50-1.
Well, John, you can't use that logic because the same applies to Michigan. I mean, their schedule: East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, and Nebraska.
Well, I mean, but they're still playing big. They still got to play Ohio State. They're still playing Big Ten football. So
yeah, they don't play a losable game until November.
And look, Clemson. I think Florida State's not a bad team this year. A lot of people like good. Yeah, so I mean that's going to be a game that matters, and we can't all have the strength of the schedule of the SEC. The thing with Clemson is, to me, they've proven that regardless of their strength of schedule, when they're good, and they can beat anybody. Except maybe Georgia.
What about the Rebels?
I mean, what about them? Like,
I just want to know how in the world did you come up with 75-4?
So for anyone who is listening, you can go to GodzillaWins.com and read my totals, my Ole Miss win total prediction. I went to Ole Miss and I hate them and I get mad at them every week. And every year I pick them to cash their under ticket, their total wins. So because that's Ole Miss, whatever the expectation is, they're not going to reach it. So you might as well bet the under. So they're under 7.5. And what Dan's referring to is the Alabama game, which I predict will be 75-4. I figure it's 75-0, and we get like 2 mercy quarterback kneels in this. Yeah, quarterback kneels in the end zone.
I mean, 75-3 would have at least been mathematically possible.
I think we can get 75-4, and if I hit that perfect score, I'd be a millionaire.
See, that's why you and Nate.
Yeah, you would.
This is why you and Nate get along so good, Jack, because you're both naysayers about your teams. Like, both of you guys drive me nuts, right? You have teams, and then you're like always down on them, right? I mean, well, come on, you gotta get a little excitement. At least it's like opening day, right? Nobody's in last place opening day of baseball. You got to have a little excitement,
except the Pirates.
Well, now I'm going to see the Pirates. I mean, but look, we bought West Virginia University season tickets. I mean, as you know, son, I've never been like the big college football fan because I went to Fairleigh Dickinson. We didn't have a football team, so it's like I never really got into it.
Yeah, you managed to beat Purdue,
like they do in the South. Yeah, but now we're going to WVU games every single week. There's like 6 or 7 of them. I guess 6 of them.
Look,
so now you're a college football fan, but you can't go into the season saying, "Oh, we suck," right? You got to have some.
Yeah, no, I can, and I will. I do that every year. We do suck. Now,
my Finnish soccer team here, we're in 11th place, and I'm just hoping we don't finish last.
And not only that, I cashed the under last year. They were 8.5 and they won 8 games. That's what they do. They don't exceed expectations. But the big thing with Ole Miss is, or the big thing with me is that I'm a golf guy. So like I cheer for golfers, and those guys I am super optimistic about. But when it comes to my teams that have let me down over and over, I'm just not that interested in. I mean, do I think that Tom Kim can shoot a 62 today in Memphis at the FedEx Cup? Absolutely, I can. But otherwise, I'm not that interested in.
Before we run out of time on college football, 2 things I want to throw in on the Big Ten. 1, Penn State dark horse pick, given that the Wolverines have to go to Happy Valley, and 2, Maryland to take the over because there's no way the Terrapins should start anything worse than 7-1 because of how soft their schedule is.
What's the over under?
Yeah, what's the
7.5?
8. Yeah, so they got to win 8 games. So Maryland over 7.5, and then Penn State to win the conference.
Yeah, I think Penn State is a strong value play.
This is the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. We want to thank Dan Angell, as always, for being with us. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're talking Colonial Downs with Nick Hahn and Darrell Wood.
You're listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
All right, we are back here with the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. My father, the Godzilla of Truth, at Colonial Downs, but not in his suite. Got kicked out of his suite because Governor Youngkin is there. So now he's, I think, either in the parking lot or in a bathroom stall somewhere trying to do his show. Maybe he can catch one of the races on TV with the rest of us. He's here with Nick Hahn, who is at Colonial Downs. They're going to handicap some races here in about 15 minutes. But Dad, before we do that, we want to, if you're in Virginia, we want to tell our listeners, how do you get involved with Rosie's Gaming and Gaming Casino?
I tell you what, this is this is the biggest race of Virginia this year, the biggest day on the card. If you're a racing fan, you got to come out. Post time 1:30. This is what they're calling, kind of the New Kent Racing Day. They got 2 Grade 1 stakes, 1 Grade 2 stakes, the Beverly D, the Arlington. This is going to be just one of the most exciting days of horse racing, I think, in Virginia's history. Yes, we did get kicked out of our suite, but Ann and I do have a table there, so we're good. But we didn't get kicked out. I had to move all my stuff out, and then I got to move it back in Sunday. But look, this thing is going to be packed. So if you're anywhere in Virginia, just go to colonialdowns.com. You can buy a clubhouse seat there, and we're going to love to see you. Meantime, downstairs, Rosie's Gaming. Go to rosiesgaming.com. There's locations all over the state. You can find one. There's Hampton. There's New Kent, obviously, where we are today, just out of Richmond. There's the other Richmond right by our studio. There's Collinswood right by Danville. There's Vinton by Roanoke. And there's Dumfries in Northern Virginia. That's where all the Rosies are. But today is going to be one of the biggest days in Virginia horse racing ever. And nobody better to tell us about that than our good friend Nick Hahn. And you can follow Nick, The Racing Biz. Go to theracingbiz.com. And by the way, Nick, you had a couple nice winners yesterday. The winner of the 8th, which I didn't bet. And then I kicked myself because he was a 5-1. But Nick, we also got Darrell Wood with us. And Darrell is with the Virginia Racing Association. He's been with them forever, and he's part of their PR team. These are 2 of the best handicappers you're going to get at Colonial Downs in the nation.
Nick, you going to take that?
With that intro, Nick, I'm going to just, what do you think, Nick?
Oh, today is, it's a very historic day in Virginia racing. We've had $1 million races before Colonial Downs, and we've had Grade 2 level racing at Colonial Downs. We've never had a Grade 1. So the way they grade the stakes, it's basically based on the performance of the horses coming in and really coming out of the races, and a certain longevity with consistently of the horses of holding the stake. You can lose a grade. You have to kind of climb the steps from a 3 to a 2 to a 1, and they also walk them backwards as well. So having 2 Grade 1s, when you look at the prestige of the Arlington Million and the Secretariat Stakes, so closely linked to Colonial Downs in the past through the Grand Slam of Grass and the emphasis of turf racing, it's unfortunate that those races had to be moved from Arlington because of the demolition of the track, but they couldn't have found a better home for the races with the heritage of racing at Colonial Downs and the similar type of racing.
Is it going to be? I know that since Churchill Downs bought Colonial Downs, it's a totally different operation. Are they going to keep these in the future, or is this Nick and Darrell a one-off?
I can take this one, Nick, but I know that the folks from Churchill are here today as big as they come in the in the hierarchy. And this is going to be a long-term plan for Colonial Downs. And, for the fans to remember that this is going to be the 20th running of the Virginia Derby on September 9th. But these races that the casual sports fan locally may not have heard of, the Beverly D, the Arlington Million, and the Secretariat Stakes, but they've been held for decades. So it's going to be a quick learning process, and it's something that I think the fans here will appreciate as time goes on. And hey, kind of a cool deal that the statue of Secretariat that traveled to the Derby and Preakness and Belmont arrived here on the front lawn last night. So fans that come out today will be able to enjoy and appreciate this wonderful bronze statue. So kind of a bonus there today.
No question about it. All right, so Darrell, let's get there's there's 9 races on the card, but there's 3 big ones. Why don't you go down the line? 1, 2, 3. Tell us what you see, what you like.
Well, I mean, I guess we're going to go in order. So race number 8 is the Secretariat Stakes, and some good horses here, including number 6 Major Dude. But this one horse, Silver Knot, is a European horse that has been on the ground since early in the week. Didn't fare that great in his last grade 1, was a 5th place finisher. But if you go back to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf from last November, lost by a nose in a grade 1 $1 million race. So I've got to go for the number 1 horse, Silver Knot, in the Secretariat. And John, keep on going for 9 and 10 as well.
Why don't we do 8, Nick, and then we'll go 8, 9, 10. Nick,
Great.
what do you see in the 8th race here? Darrell likes the 1 Silver Knot 3-1 morning line. Nick.
Yeah, I actually, it looks like More Than Looks, who raced yesterday at Saratoga, is going to be a scratch, the 7. Nagarok is a horse that, along with another horse, Never Explained, who runs in the 10th race, they both set track records at Pimlico over Preakness weekend in their stakes. So I think that's a very interesting angle to follow. They also have had minor setbacks from a performance standpoint since that race. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these races come back. I know that Graham Motion loves this firm turf course that we're going to get today. The alternative would be up at Saratoga, where it's been raining forever. But I really like Nagarok here. Motion, of course, has won the Virginia Derby twice here while it was run at Colonial Downs. So he knows the course, and I think that's going to be my pick here with Nagarok.
I like Nagarok also, and I like Graham Motion, and so we're aligned on that. Although I do have to go with Darrell on one thing. Even though Nagarok is, I guess, the morning line favorite of 5-2, I think Silver Knot from Great Britain is probably the best horse in the race, probably the one to beat. But it's just in these races, Nick, it's really hard to bet against Graham Motion. I mean, the guy just seems to figure these things out. He's one of the best trainers in these anywhere. So, all right. So both Nick and I like the 3, and Darrell likes the 1. Let's get to race 9. Darrell.
All right, John, and I should note that it's really tough trying to find a quiet spot here on the grounds on.
Oh, that's fine.
A morning like this, so I'm sitting in a closet so I can be with you. So
you're doing fine.
Chad Brown has got a couple of horses in here for the outside in the Beverly D, race number 9. Gina Romantica and Rocky Sky. He paddock schooled both these horses extensively yesterday. You've got the 1 horse here, Feb Rover, 2-1 out of the Marcassi stable as the early 2-1 favorite. I'm gonna go, I think, with Chad Brown's Gina Romantica from gate position 6. A horse that won a grade 1 at Keeneland last fall. Had some time off since January this year. He hasn't raced since January, where he was 4th in a grade 3 stakes, though. But I think the time off, and obviously that grade 1 at Keeneland last year showed potential. Chad Brown, one of the great trainers in the country. So I'm going to take the 6, Gina Romantica.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, I'm actually. It's interesting when these horses ship in. They're 2 distinct schools of thought. One is to sort of ship in early, get the horse accustomed to the conditions, get them relaxed. The other one is sort of like to get in before the jet lag kicks in, which is like to ship in last night, which a lot of these horses did. But I like Feb Rover here for Mark Cassie, breaking from the one post. I do understand. I think Didia, who's a significant horse and one of the horses that actually has racing experience at Colonial Downs. There's one of these in each of the stakes races. I believe Didia is going to scratch out of the race. Not official yet, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. But yeah, I like Feb Rover here with Javier Castellano, who won. That's the other big story here. All the Derby riders, Triple Crown regular riders, Flavian Pratt, Tyler Gaffleon, John Velasquez, Javier Castellano. You have the whole Triple Crown represented here between Castellano and Velasquez, the winning jockeys. So it's always great to see the big boys come to town.
All right, so give us your pick again then.
Feb Rover, the one, I think this horse has just been on the grounds, looked pretty comfortable yesterday when I went back to see her in her stall. And I think this is a horse that can sort of get out on the lead. That's one thing also especially when the turf is firm at Colonial, you cannot be too far off the pace. If you are well back, if you're looking for a big closing move, it gets harder and harder to do that as the turf course gets firmer and firmer.
Well, my pick was the Argentina horse, Didia, who's a beast, but as you said, that he's likely to get scratched. So that kind of, for me, throws that just throws everything in a tizzy. In fact, that was my best bet of the day on the card. So what was the issue there, Nick?
Well, Didia, and I'm getting this. I always like to see it official before I really give it out, but I think Didia had a little bit of a stall accident. I noticed yesterday she had a gash on her face, and I think that's going to be enough. It doesn't take much. That's something I think that really goes underappreciated by the public sometimes. It does not take very much to have a horse scratch out of a race. They can always come back and race another day. And that's usually the practice that's employed. So I think that's going to be the reason for the scratch of number 5, Didia.
Well, even for $2 million here, I mean, that's, you bandage that up thing and go, right? It's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot of money. It's $500,000 stake here with the Beverly D, which is actually going to be the first Grade 1 ever run at Colonial Downs, because it becomes before the Arlington Million itself. But yeah, they can. There are other races, there are other stakes. There's the Breeders' Cup down the line, so they're going to be cautious here and err on the side of caution, which is the right play. It's the right thing to do by the horse.
So I'm going to stay in the 9th race. I'm going to stay with Didia if they're able to run. If not, my second choice in this race is Romana Mia. I mean, this is another one of those things where without Didia in there, and I know you said it's tough to come off the pace here, but what do you think of Romana Mia, the 3, Darrell?
Now you've got a field that shrunk down 6, if Nick is right. But Graham Motion has had quite a run here, especially in the Virginia Derby. He's familiar with the turf course. He has success here. He knows how to race here. You can't go wrong. 4-1, and with Didia out, probably a little bit lower odds.
All right, so we've all got our choices here. Okay, Darrell, let's get to race 10. The third of this big 3. Break that down for us.
Boy, the granddaddy, $1 million purse, Arlington Million. Hard to believe it's right here in New Kent. This is something that, having worked here so long, it's hard to believe, but here we are. So got a couple local flavors here. Number 8, Catnip, is trained by Michael Stidham, who's been our leading trainer 3 years in a row. He was quite confident yesterday, as any trainer would be. When I spoke with him in the afternoon. You've got Santine, number 11, that was the Arlington Million winner last year when the race was held at Churchill Downs. That was a one-off. And then another one, Mark Cassie's a 20-1 horse, number 10, Win for the Money. won at Colonial Downs. If there's a horse with the home team advantage, Win for the Money is the only horse to have raced here and won here. It's a wide open race. I mean, the early favorite 7-2. The next favorite is 5-1. So the morning line maker obviously thinks it's a wide open field. I'm gonna try Catnip, the 8 horse. Raced really well in the United Nations Grade 1 at Monmouth here last month. Won it easily in a Grade 3 before that, and maybe the horse is on a roll and stood and knows the course, and hopefully at a decent price, number 8 Catnip.
Hey, look, Michael Stidham got off. He was ice cold here, right? He brought this huge stable in. You know, a lot of trainers don't do that. You know, like they'll keep half their stock at Churchill Downs or Gulfstream or wherever they are. He brought everybody here. He was like 0 for 25, but now he's on fire. I mean, yesterday I think he won like 3 or 4 races. So his barn's hot. He's always confident. I'm with Darrell here. I love the 8. I love Catnip. Somebody's got to beat this horse, right? I mean, you look at the dominant performance he had at Monmouth. Somebody's got to beat him. And when I see a horse like this, that I'm looking for someone to beat them, not a good sign, right? So I like to bet that one. So I'm going with the 8 Catnip. Nick Hahn, baby, wrap us up.
Yeah, I walked by Catnip's stall. He arrived yesterday. He looked absolutely alert and brilliant. Didn't look like he had just like walked across the parking lot to get to the track, much less come down from Fair Hill. Just very much looked the part. I'm actually on the record with Never Explain. That was the other horse that set the track record in the dinner party at Preakness on the Pimlico Racecourse over Preakness weekend. Sugar McGay, he brings in this horse. He likes this turf course, but the firmer the better for him. Part of the reason he decided to bring this horse down from Saratoga. So yeah, I like Catnip here, and just an interesting race here with the Arlington Million. Giopani won the Virginia Derby. And came back to win the Arlington Million. So that's just kind of part of the tie-in here with so many past horses that are connected to this race. One note I think this is kind of important. The Virginia Derby is on the last weekend of the meet, and there were a number of races that were held over the weekend. Yesterday in the Hall of Fame, and then which was won by Carl Spackler, who many of your listeners may know from Caddyshack fame. And then last week, Program Trading was first, Web Slinger was second. The Virginia Derby is really setting up in the calendar to be a great race. It's only $500,000 in terms of purse money. I say that, but it's I think really going to be a great race. If you're somehow dissatisfied by what you see this weekend, come back in 4 weeks for the Virginia Derby, because that is really setting up to be a very competitive field.
Okay, Nick Hahn, Darrell Wood, want to thank you both for this Colonial Downs update. And in the 10th race in the Arlington, we all like Catnip the 8, which means probably you want to find another horse. When we all agree on something, that's not a good sign. Nick Hahn, you can follow him, The Racing Biz. That's B-I-Z, theracingbiz.com, theracingbiz.com. Want to thank him. He's got all his picks there. Mine are on Godzilla Wins. And of course, Darrell Wood. Darrell and I go back for, oh my God, years. And he is a stalwart here at Colonial Downs and the Virginia Racing Association. Darrell, Nick, thank you for being with us, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so some huge races there at the Colonial Downs. That Virginia Derby, really an excellent race. Big things happening at Colonial Downs right now. We are joined with Sheriff David Clarke to talk a little NFL here for at least 15 to 20 minutes. We'll see where the conversation goes. Then we got to get to the UFC as always. Sheriff Clarke, welcome to the show as always.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
So Sheriff, wait, I just got right off the bat. right off the bat, Aaron Rodgers is disgruntled again. My son says this. Jack says the world's most disgruntled employee right off the bat. 2 days of practice, and he's pissed off again. Like, doesn't matter what team he's on. What's the deal with this? Now he's whining about their offensive line. He said, I didn't know they were this bad. I mean, this is the same guy that said in the first week of the Packers, he says, if you can't block for me, don't come in my huddle. Now he's complaining again. He's been there 2 days.
Well, come on. This is the silly season of the preseason. That's all you're going to get are narratives and stories about foolishness. Look, Rodgers is a perfectionist. That's probably why he's attained the level of play consistently over damn near 20 years that he has. Yeah, he expects guys to be in the right place at the right time. He expects guys along the offensive line to get it right. And that's the kind of guy you want, I think. I've never been a big Aaron Rodgers fan. Not that I didn't think he was good. I thought he was great, but he was always beating the Cowboys. So, but look, between that and between Eric Bieniemy, the flap over that he's a little too rough. Players were whining to the head coach. Those are the kind of stories you're going to get out of training camp. So I guess we just have to tolerate it. I think it's lazy.
Yeah, and they're the Hard Knocks team. So that's the other thing is they're manufacturing a lot of the storylines to revolve around the Jets because the Jets are one of the most interesting teams in the league right now because of the fact that they have Aaron Rodgers. They had a great defense. People feel like they're one step away from greatness. So I think you're right. We're manufacturing stories here. Aaron Rodgers likes to do this. That's just who he is. He likes to go on the Pat McAfee show. He likes to get in front of reporters and kind of needle everybody. I'm not sure that everyone on the team or in the huddle actually feels that way about him, although I do love the ridiculously complicated route trees that he's always expecting his wide receivers to memorize, because I think that they should be able to memorize them. Why not? That's their job. So if he has weird hand signals that he wants to use, then I think we should, they should memorize them. But I know that was a big thing in Green Bay last year. So, Dad, what we're going to do for this segment is we're going to take some questions from our listeners. Call it Homer Hotline. Basically, I've got a couple questions here about some of our listeners and their favorite teams. But before we do that, we really need to get everyone on board with Beard Vet Coffee. I'm drinking Beard Vet Coffee right now, Dad. I put it in the coffee mug earlier today. Just tell us a little bit about Beard Vet Coffee and how people can use that promo code.
Well, I nominated for Coffee Hall of Fame. Beard Vet, it should be in the Coffee Hall of Fame. It should be in Cooperstown. It should be in Canton. This is the best coffee you're ever going to have. Patty Lyman came. She did my show with me yesterday. She got, do you have Beard Vet here? I'm like, there's a big black bear crap in the woods. Of course I have it. So she had that. She loved it. It's all you got to do. I tell you what, it's bold. I don't know how they did this, but it's strong, it's bold, but it's smooth. And there's no bitterness and there's no acidity to it. That's why, and I'm hooked on it. I love my Beard Vet. Go to beardvet.com, beardvet.com. Promo code Godzilla, you're going to get 10% off. A portion of whatever they make goes to support veterans organizations. This is really a wonderful, wonderful coffee, and you support a great cause and enjoy it. Beardvet.com, promo code Godzilla, 10% off. And our thanks to Sean, George, and Kenny Lee, both served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Couldn't get a decent cup of Joe there. So when we get back, we're going to invent our own coffee. It's going to be the best ever. And that's exactly what they did.
It is. And
boy, what a wake-up. What a wake-up call, John. Lady comes in and says, do you have any Beard Vet coffee? And she's met with, does a big fat bear crap in the woods.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I want to think about before I drink a cup of coffee.
Yeah. So let's do a couple questions here, just some rapid fire from our listeners. I've got one from Radio Mac, who's an Eagles fan. I want to throw this to Sheriff Clarke, who hates the Eagles, I would imagine, but also gives them a lot of respect. So his question, Sheriff Clarke, for you is just, can the Eagles bounce back after their Super Bowl loss? I mean, is this a team to really that's going to end up dominating this in NFC East, or can the Cowboys usurp?
I don't, bounce back. I guess if you go by history, the Super Bowl loser doesn't fare too well the following year, traditionally or historically, I should say. So, but yeah, they're stacked. There's no doubt about that. I don't think they're going to dominate the NFC East. They certainly aren't going to dominate it when you have teams like the Cowboys. I think you might see a little resurgence out of the Commanders, or football team, or Redskins, whatever they're calling themselves this week. And then the Giants, I don't know. They're going to have to prove it to me with consecutive seasons of some winning football. But I'm not buying this that the NFC is weak. That's a thread that started the narrative, and everybody keeps repeating that the NFC is weak. And, look, these are professionals. And nobody last year, nobody, not even Eagles fans, predicted the Eagles to have the kind of season they have. But they put it together. They lost both of their coordinators. That is a huge deal. Anytime a team loses even one coordinator.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You can fall off a little bit. So I don't see a huge
I agree with that.
14 games this year, but they'll be up there. They'll be contending, and we'll see. We don't know who's going to emerge.
Well, what do you think about Washington? I mean, actually, they didn't win a lot of games last year, but they were in a lot of games. Remember the whatever they're called now? What are they called? Football Commanders Club, or whatever the hell their name is. Washington Football Club. They were in a lot of games last season. They didn't really have a quarterback worth of crap. Their defense was, pretty stout. I mean, can you see them stealing some game? When people said the NFC East is weak, I laughed my ass off. It's like,
no, nobody says the NFC. Nobody says the NFC East is weak. People say the NFC is weak, and the reason is because they don't have quarterback star power outside of now Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, a couple names. There's a lot of just young rookie quarterbacks. And quarterbacks like Daniel Jones, whereas in the AFC, you've got Mahomes, you've got Herbert, you've got Josh Allen, and there's like 3 or 4 more. In the NFC, you're talking about Geno Smith, and I love Geno Smith, but that's the reason people say the NFC is weak. Now, the NFC East is not weak. I mean, that is the best division in football, I think, right now, and the most competitive.
Yeah. Thank you.
2 years ago, it was the worst. So you can have kind of swings like that in a season, but that's why I point back to nobody picked the Eagles to dominate like they did 14-3, whatever they were, making it all the way to the Super Bowl. It's hard to get to the Super Bowl. It is very hard to get to the Super Bowl. And you're talking about the AFC with the quarterback star power. Sure, they have it, but look at it this way. Only one of those quarterbacks is going to come out of that bunch, not all 5. So, we'll see. At some point, Kansas City is going to have the Super Bowl hangover. They've played a lot of football games in the last 5 years. Somebody threw up a graphic. They played over 220 games in the last 5 years because of, you add the playoff games and whatnot. That's a lot of football. That's a lot of pounding. Fortunately for them, they've turned the roster over a little bit to keep it fresh. At some point, that's going to get done. All that football and all that pounding.
So, Dad, we got another question here. This one comes from Starman. He's down there in Jacksonville. He's a big Jags fan. What do you think about the Jaguars here? Do you think the Jaguars can win the AFC South? Everybody else does. I don't know if you do, Dad. You're a Titans fan. And is Lawrence like the next quarterback of the future?
Yes and yes. These are simple answers. Look, and this is tough for me as a Titans fan, and I hate Jacksonville, and I hate Trevor Lawrence. I hate their town. I hate their city. I hate their logo. I hate everything about them. But, and look, we had them beat last year 2 times, right? One game, Henry fumbled when he was going in for the winning touchdown. We blew that game. And then the game at the end where, the guy that nobody heard of fumbled when all we had to do was hold the football to win. But look, you got to look at this Jacksonville team, and you got to look at Trevor Lawrence, and they've got a good defense. They've got they've got a decent offensive line, and they're going to be in a lot of these games. I think the Titans win the division because I think they're going to beat them 1 out of the 2 games, and then they got a little bit of an easier schedule. But if you're a Jacksonville fan, you got to be excited about the future based on a couple seasons ago, you were going to games with bags over your heads. So, it's been quite the turnaround. And look, Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. Here's what you got to look at as a Jacksonville fan, right? You look at that San Diego game. You're in the playoffs. You're down 24-3, and they got the ball, and they're driving with 3 minutes to go before the half, right? This game's over. If they just kick a field goal, they go in for a touchdown, it's 31-3 going to the half. This game's over. This isn't Oilers, Buffalo back in the day. That thing's over. They came back. They won that game. Trevor Lawrence showed tremendous poise in the second half. In the first half, remember, they stopped them on a 4th and half a foot or something. They stuffed them. 2.5 minutes to go. Trevor Lawrence then goes down the field, scores a touchdown to get him back in the game. You look at something like that, and you say, okay, this guy's a real deal.
Well, this has been the history of the Chargers football organization, though.
I mean, just because
a lot of promise, but never quite being able to get over the hump. That was a total collapse. And you know what? Was it Doug Peterson, the coach of Jacksonville? He's made a difference. There's no doubt about that. But again, they're doing it against the Chargers. I got to see Lawrence do it. I need a bigger sample size in order to, we a lot of people that come through the NFL with talent, and it never really stays consistent throughout entire career. So I got to see him do it now with a tougher schedule. Having won that lousy division. The same with the Eagles. A little tougher schedule. And that could all make the difference. So these teams that are winning close games or losing close games, they could flip it. Like you mentioned, the Commanders, John, that were in a lot of games. But being in a lot of games doesn't register on in the stat box. They don't have wins, losses in a lot of games. All right, you either win the game or you lose the game.
Yeah, I mean, you're always in the game when it starts. So I mean, the Commanders really. They weren't in a lot of games. What we're remembering is that they didn't suck as bad as we thought they were. But I watched a lot of Commanders football, and they did suck for like a lot of the season because they didn't have a quarterback and they don't really have a defense. They have a great roster and they have good offensive weapons. But I mean, they weren't actually in a lot of games, and they're not going to be competitive this year either as they try to right the ship there. I want to stay in the AFC South a little bit here because tonight we got a big game between preseason, as big as it gets in preseason, the Colts and the Bills. Are either of y'all interested to see how Anthony Richardson does on this Colts team, or
yes,
are you going to be watching something else? Okay.
Yes, because
no.
he's got to be the one pick out of the draft that is the biggest wild card. Roll the dice. What the hell you got? Is it a jackpot? Or is it a flame out, right? I mean, everybody else you kind of know. Like we picked this guy Will Levis from Kentucky, who couldn't even beat Ohio, couldn't even beat Mississippi. I'm not a fan. We'll see what happens. But that was there's a lot of other guys they picked. This guy has got all the tools, But then there's something about him you're not really positive. So I think that's a game to watch. And Anthony Richardson could end up being one of the most exciting players in the NFL, or he could be a Ryan Leaf.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up because I was going to say that the Teddy Bridgewaters, all these guys that come in with a lot of promise. I don't really care what Richardson does in this game tonight. It's not really going to matter if he plays a couple series. That'll be about it. Not enough, big enough of a sample size. Look at C.J. Stroud the other night. I mean, that guy was like a deer in the headlights back there. Because the speed of the game is different. Yeah. You hear that? Yeah. It's not a cliche.
Yeah.
That's what these rookies realize at every position. After the first couple of preseason games and even the regular season, the speed of the game is different.
Yeah.
He wasn't facing professional C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Ohio State. He had nice offensive line. He doesn't have that. He had all-world receivers.
Yeah.
But the speed of the game is what's different. You got to process this stuff quickly.
Yeah.
You got to make your reads, go through your progressions, and then get rid of the damn ball. But he couldn't do that because he was like shell shocked, and that's going to happen. So I'm not going to look and say he's a bust, which is why I'm not going to gauge Richardson off of what he does tonight.
Well, that's why I'm not a fan of picking quarterbacks out of non-Power 5 division. Like, remember the 2 seasons ago or something, the Titans picked Malik Willis, and my son was all excited about it. I'm like, Joe, the guy's throwing passes against Wolford. Okay, Elon. I mean, come on, man. You can't take that and then go to the NFL. I mean, the guy got there. He was clueless. I mean,
but
too much.
I don't know what that has to do with CJ Stroud. He went to Ohio State, and you were a huge Malik Willis fan for like 10 minutes until he sucked. So, let's not get too like, oh, I was ahead of the curve on Malik Willis. Everybody told you on the radio show, we said Malik Willis sucks, and you said no, he doesn't. He's a Titan. He's the culture matters or whatever.
Hey, give him a break. Give John a break. He's enamored by shiny objects.
I know he is. And look, CJ Stroud went to Ohio State, so that's not really germane either. I think the problem with these quarterbacks, like you talk about Teddy Bridgewater, maybe Anthony Richardson, is they have to be in the right situation. And I'm not sure the Colts are in an organization right now that is primed to mentor a young quarterback and help them learn how to be. First of all, they got a first year head coach in Shane Steichen, I think is his name. So you've got that issue going on. It's not, Mahomes was Mahomes. He's a terrific legend, but he stepped into the right situation. I mean, he had Alex Smith in that role before him. He had Andy Reid. He had Eric Bieniemy forever. And so he was able to grow into that role. Teddy Bridgewater, you bring him up. He never really had that type of situation. Talk about someone like Geno Smith, who seems to have who's now found a situation that is conducive for his success. And I just don't think that Richardson is in the right situation for this.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, of course, if you go to a stable club with a head coach who's been there a while, that's going to make a difference. However, some guys are able to overcome it. But what I see today with these young quarterbacks now, there's such a rush to get them in the game. You hear these statements like, well, they got a lot of investment. We got to know right now if this guy can do it. It doesn't happen right now. And so they come off of him real quick. They start out 1-4, and then they bench the guy. You look at some of the greats of this game, the first couple of years, not different organizations, but you look at Troy Aikman, for example, his first year, 1-15. They couldn't keep him up. It was a mess down there with the offensive line. So then Jimmy Johnson came and started to build it. But you got to be patient with these guys. The next they were 7-9, then they're 10-7. You got to give them time. But once the fans get like one bad half or a game where the guy throws 3 picks, they're booing, they're calling for the next guy. We want this backup's always the most popular guy in the NFL.
I mean,
but they give up on him too early.
Yeah, you still need a stable coach, though. I mean, you look at Lawrence, right? Lawrence looked like a joke that first year with Urban Meyer, and now he's turned into a quarterback who we all think is going to be solid because Doug Peterson is such a terrific quarterback coach, and of course played quarterback at the NFL level for a long time and has done a lot with those guys.
We'll see. He flamed out at the end with Philadelphia. With short memories on some of this stuff. This last couple of years, Peterson at Philadelphia, who was the quarterback, the guy they gave the extension to, and now he's wearing 3 different uniforms auditioning for
Carson Wentz. I mean, yeah.
So we talk about this.
Yeah, but I still think that. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think that Peterson kind of was scapegoated a little bit. I still think it's a good situation for Lawrence. I'm not sure it's as good a situation for someone like Richardson going forward. I'll talk one more quarterback because I got one question. Then we got to get to our UFC coverage, but I got a question about the Falcons. Who's going to start for them? I don't know. It doesn't really matter because all you do is hand off the ball to your 19 running backs. Same thing with the Titans. They got Tannehill, but who cares if he actually starts because you just have to go hut, hike, and then toss the ball to one of the running backs. It'll probably be Desmond Ridder, but all I did was see him overthrow everyone, and they have a bunch of weapons there. So I'm hoping whoever the quarterback is, probably Desmond Ridder, that he doesn't suck so bad as he did at the beginning of the season. But
we'll see. Awful. He looked terrible. Yeah, I got to tell you, man. He looked. What was he from? Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
It's another guy. You're playing in these non-Power 5 conferences, I guess now Cincinnati being one, I think they're going to the Big 12, but I don't know. They play in the American. They just don't play the caliber of football. They just don't have the speed.
I guess, but they made the playoffs, 1 year. So like
and they got blown out.
Yeah, but it's not like they totally suck all the time. But I'm not trying to defend Desmond Ridder here. I just think you got to give him a little bit of time. The big thing is there's only one or maybe two quarterbacks in a draft that are ever going to be reliable starters. And so if a draft has 12 quarterbacks, only one or two are ever going to materialize into anything even remotely serviceable, like someone like Tannehill or Geno Smith or Justin Fields. All these guys. It's just hard to find the right quarterback. So, we'll see. And look, we're going to talk about this all year long because we have tons of NFL coverage from now until the Super Bowl. So we'll have all that coming up in the coming weeks as we get to the actual NFL season. I don't love talking about preseason because it's a snooze, but we may talk a little bit about it more and more. We want to thank Sheriff Clarke, as always, for being on the show with us. He's one of our football guys. And you can find him on Twitter. All you got to do is type in Sheriff, and he's the first thing that pops up there with all those followers. So you'll be able to find him there. Thanks, Sheriff Clarke, for joining us for our football segment. My there. Pleasure. Dad, thank you, Sheriff Clarke. Got a little ahead of myself there. Dad, one of the things before we get to the UFC that we got to talk about, and this is, really to me has a lot to do with sleep value because I need a good night's sleep. And the only way that I can get that these days is with MyPillow, some of the greatest pillows in the history of pillow technology. MyPillow, the MyPillow 2.0, really incredible. So tell us a little bit about how our listeners can get involved with MyPillow and that incredible promo code FUN, which you can get just ridiculous deals.
Well, listen, you got to get, I'm all about it. At my age, I'm all about a good night's sleep. I talked about REM sleep earlier. I travel that. I also travel with MyPillow 2.0. And Joe's all set up with it at his dorm in West Virginia. It's got a cooling sensation in it. There's nothing better than when you're had a long day and you crawl into that bed at night, and you got your nice MyPillow 2.0 there. Mike Lindell right now at MyPillow's got all of these closeout sales going because he's trying to get everything out for all his brand new stock coming in for the winter for Christmas. So you're going to get the best deals there. You got beach towels, you got slippers, you got sandals, just great products at great savings. Just go to mypillow.com. Do it now. It'll take you a minute. mypillow.com, promo code FUN. Easy promo code, right? Fun. mypillow.com, promo code FUN. You can find something on there you want. You help our cause. But the main thing is they're a sponsor of our show. And these are look, guys, if you like our show, these are the sponsors that believed in Godzilla Wins from the very beginning, that knew we had a vision, that it was going to be something, but we can't do it without them. And then we can't do it without our listeners like yourself ordering something with promo code FUN. So you help yourself out, you help us out. MyPillow.com, promo code FUN, get the MyPillow 2.0. Right now, queen size, you got a great sale, $19. You just can't get this anywhere else for this price. It's incredible. So go ahead and do that, mypillow.com. Also, Mom and I are moving. We just ordered the MyPillow mattress. So that's going to be coming with us. Our old one, we just threw it out. Too old. Got mattress toppers there. MyPillow.com, promo code FUN.
Absolutely. We want to welcome Patrick Assalone, our senior fight guy, and the Crusader, I think, is what I've taken call on him these days. He's going to talk a little bit of UFC with us, UFC 78. Nate's out, so it'll just be me and Patrick talking a little bit about that. But Patrick, before we do that, targettrading.co, tell us your wins and losses for this week. What's going on with Target Trading? Oh, Patrick, you might be muted.
There you go.
Patrick's muted. There we go.
79 wins, 22 losses, 4 break even. So for all of you out there who don't want to wait for the weekend to bet on stuff, we're not betting. We are taking calculated financial risks. You got us Monday through Friday, practically 24 hours a day to satisfy that urge.
If you want to unlock your financial security, this is the way to go. Targettrading.co. Patrick comes on every week. He shares his wins and losses. He's very transparent about that. 79 wins. That's incredible. Just an incredible week as always there. This is futures trading. This stuff is very complicated, can be very lucrative, but you have to have the right trading. So you can go to targettrading.co and get involved with this. And they've got some, I think, a virtual tour as well. So you can kind of get used to the idea. And what you really want, like what we want you to be able to do is we want you to have some opportunity to have some financial security and independence outside of whatever else you have going on. And one of the best ways to do that is to be trained in how to invest in a way that is strategical. And Patrick and the guys at targettrading.co, they do it all the time. And when we're talking about, sponsors of the show, like if you like this show, Target Trading has been one of our, I think maybe our first sponsor. And so we want you guys to support them. If you like the show, then please go to targettrading.co and check them out. Okay, Patrick, 15 minutes here. So not our usual 30, but that's all right, because it's just you and me. No more long-winded Nate discussions about whatever it is.
And honestly, Jack, with these 3 fights that we're going to be talking about, we don't need 30 minutes.
Yeah, so that's true, because I was looking at this being like, I don't even have much anything really interesting to say about. They're so chalky. So let's talk about Roundtree and Khalil Roundtree and Chris Daukaus for UFC 78. We'll do that really quick. Then we can do the other one. Then we can get to the main event.
Honestly, Jack, what you gave me were 3 other fights, and I'm going to tell you right now, those are the only 3 fights worth talking about when there's nothing to really talk about. And I'm going to tell you something else. When we were talking about, when you gave me the Max Holloway Korean Zombie choice, I looked on the card. Right below that is Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann. How is that not the main event? And you've got Max Holloway beating up literally a dead man walking. No joke.
Yeah.
I'm almost disgusted with it.
Yeah, and so what I accidentally did was usually when I send out that sheet, I've got the 3 fights for the current UFC, but I was looking at the wrong thing, and I basically listed the 3 main events coming up, I guess. So there's Max Holloway and the Korean Zombie, which I think is UFC Singapore. And Holloway is a massive favorite. I mean, if we just talk about this for a minute, for the next couple weeks, he's like minus 1,000. And you're right about the Spann thing. Like, why is this the main event if it's going to be so chalky? I don't know if it's just the fact that it's Singapore, or I really don't understand what they did in this fight card.
It's Singapore. They've got nobody else locally to put in there that's going to be a huge draw. Not that it wouldn't be a huge draw to begin with, but when you get from somebody from the region, you're going to have a lot more support, a lot more ticket buys, a lot more everything. Okay. Max Holloway should not be fighting this guy. He has nothing to gain by fighting this guy. Max Holloway should only be fighting Volkanovski only. And he's lost to him 3 times. That's the only guy that is going to beat Max Holloway. Period. Korean Zombie is out of his mind thinking that, I've got knockout power. I can knock this guy out. Apparently you haven't seen the guy that you're fighting who's thrown the most volume strikes like in the history of the UFC. So I think he's out of his mind. I think this is more so of a payoff for him. They're trying to build the brand overseas again to also go against One Championship Fighting, which does a lot of promoting out there. So that could also be a reason why.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, we talk about this all the time at the UFC, is that there is a sprinkle of the WWE in the UFC. And what I mean by that is they have to have storylines. They have to continue to build their brand. There has to be some entertainment value. Some of the stuff that Dana White comes up with works really well, like the BMF. That is always so much fun. There's so much excitement around it. But a lot of other times, because the UFC is every week and they have to manufacture interest, sometimes you get this stuff where you think, okay, Korean Zombie, cool name, not the greatest fighter. I mean, underwhelming all the time. And then fighting a guy who's at the top of his game in Max Holloway, who, like you said, I mean, if it's not Volkanovski, then he's just going to beat everybody else. That's just where it is. So he can't beat Volkanovski, but you have to have something. And then it's like, okay, well, let's put it in Singapore. We'll make this the main event. And it's just like a main event that's minus 1,000 is ridiculous. I mean, you don't even see that it happens every once in a while, but that is such, maybe it gets hammered down to minus like 700, but I doubt it.
No, and I think this is also a payoff for Holloway, who, when during the entire Wuhan flu freaking fiasco, fought his butt off for the UFC, went to work, did his job, is a company guy, will fight anybody he's told to fight. And I think it's a great payoff for him, keeping him active while not putting a whole lot of risk on him, if you look at it that way. But if he has nothing to win in this fight, because everybody's expecting him to win, so he better win.
Yeah, I think, oh my gosh. I mean, if he lost, it would just be ridiculous. But then if he lost, people would just be like, well, this was not this would never a fight that he was interested in, and he's just doing it for a paycheck.
Exactly. It doesn't hurt him either way, except immediately after.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk then about UFC 78, because this is, Vicente Luque and Rafael dos Anjos. This is an interesting fight. It's really, I mean, if you even are just a casual fan, you definitely probably have heard of Rafael dos Anjos, because the list of people he has fought is like incredible. I mean, he's fought Khabib Nurmagomedov, Nate Diaz, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Tony Ferguson, Robbie Lawler, Leon Edwards, and Eddie Alvarez. I mean, this guy is fighting the best, most famous, most entertaining guys in the UFC. And then you've got Vicente Luque, who went on a 10-1 run from 2017 to 2021. So this is, I mean, these guys are not like ranked. I mean, they're top 10 guys, but they're not in their division, but they're not ranked like number 3 and 4. But this is a really interesting fight. So what do you see in the Luque dos Anjos fight that you like?
Well, dos Anjos was a world champion too. So he's fought everybody. And when you're in that weight class and in the weight class above you and below you, every fight is practically a world title fight, because the top 10 guys are going to beat each other 5 out of 10 times every time they fight. So you're always in a freaking war. He's got enormous experience. He's great everywhere. His ground game is fantastic. As far as Luque, he's got problems. He had a brain hemorrhage after his last fight.
Yeah.
He got cleared. And this is something that, we were speaking about last week, when we said, I believe Suarez, well, she had a neck problem. There's a big difference between a problem with your neck that can be diagnosed and a legitimate brain hemorrhage. Okay. When the first time I fought and lost the world championship, doctors told me your ACL is torn, your meniscus is collapsed, you're never, ever going to fight again. Went to my therapist. It was a displaced fibula. He popped the thing back into place. I was squatting the next day. Okay. So I'm not trying to discount anything that happened to her, but this is a legitimate brain hemorrhage. That's bleeding in the brain. That's a big problem. Whether or not it was as serious as it sounds, trust me when I tell you that is going to be in his mind. Believe me when I tell you this.
How do you get cleared? Like, how do you get a doctor's exemption after having a brain hemorrhage from your last fight?
You find one. Yeah. But I'm sure Dana White's still not going to allow it unless a UFC doctor is looking at it too, because you're not going to risk a multi-billion-dollar company on one fighter. You're not going to do it. It doesn't matter, especially when we just went through the myriad of garbage fights they put together. They can put garbage in there anytime. Mm-hmm. So apparently he's cleared. He's ready to go and he's ready to fight. I think Dos Anjos this is his fight to lose. I think he wins in every possible scenario, excluding the brain hemorrhage issue that I'm positive going to be thinking about.
Yeah. So, okay. So, we're talking about, Luque with the brain hemorrhage. And one thing that I'm wondering with him, like, just as from a fighter's perspective, when you say, okay, it's going to be in Dos Anjos' mind as sort of the fighter, but it's also going to be in Luque's mind. Is that are you just more trepidatious to stand up there and bang? Do you tend to, are you going to cover your head a little bit more? Are you going to be looking to finish quickly? Like, how does knowing that you have some sort of brain hemorrhage affect just your presence in the ring? I mean, I don't think it's going to play into his strategy, but when you talk about having it in the back of your mind, like what do you mean there?
Well, you have to go out there and fight no matter what and fight your fight. If I'm Dos Anjos, I'm throwing bombs to this guy's head. If you're dumb enough to get in there, I am going after you. I'm headhunting you. I'm going to try to take your head off. Those punches keep landing. The doubt starts building. Now, and there's also something that people don't understand about getting hit to the head. It's not necessarily because the guy you're fighting hits so hard you get knocked out. Generally, what happens, the reason you get knocked out is because your own mouth is open. You're not biting down on your mouthpiece. Your chin isn't down. Your whole body isn't taking the shot. It's because your chin is waving out there in the wind and your mouth is open. Okay? So that's a flash knockout. That can happen at any time. If Luque is going to keep his jaw down and keep getting hit, I've got to believe sooner or later it's going to work to his disadvantage.
So, RDA is a high-level BJJ black belt. He's got some of the best striking in the division. He's at a little size advantage, but when we're talking about his striking ability, like, to me, one of the weird things about this fight is the odds makers think it might go the distance. I don't see how that's possible. I just feel like if RDA can continue to focus on his striking, can stand up there and bang, or can get him on the ground and do that thing where you're just kind of half hitting him in the head while you're trying to grapple for position, where, like, to me, if just because Dos Anjos is such a good striker and also is a black belt in BJJ, I just feel like I don't see how this thing goes the distance. I feel like at some point it's going to be a knockout or it could be a TKO.
He just has more ways to win. He can mix his striking, his takedowns, and his groundwork up, which is a huge advantage over really what's a one-trick pony and a very powerful striker in Luque. That's just the fact. And you're going to find, Jack, that when you get on the ground like that and you start throwing these half-hearted punches, believe me, when you start feeling meat under those knuckles, you can feel your opponent. You can feel the life going out of them. Those half-ass punches turn into bombs. Trust me when I tell you this. And if he has the opportunity to knock him out, he's not going to waste time. Dos Anjos is one of those guys that doesn't care how he wins. He doesn't need to knock you out. He doesn't need to choke you out. He doesn't need to have some sort of marquee play that I'm going to do this and this. No. The guy is an opportunist, but he can close from any range.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that the big thing with Luque, so Luque has been doing leg kicks since before leg kicks were popular. And that's how he wins. And so if you're Luque and you feel like, okay, I've got this, brain hemorrhage issue, so I'm not exactly trying to stand up here and bang. So I've got to get close enough to strike with the legs, but I can probably chop at the legs, especially the calves, because that's kind of where he likes to target. I can chop at RDA's calves just over and over, chop, 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 chop. And then maybe I've weakened his position where I can get in the ring a little bit with him, get a little closer, and now he can't throw these strikes to my head or use the leg kick as much because his legs are weakened. That would kind of, I think, be my strategy for Luque, but that's the only way I see him winning is just leg kick, leg kick, leg kick, knockout. I mean, I don't see another way for him to win.
We talk about this every week. Are they going to go in and fight the fight that's going to get them the win? Or are they going to fight the fight that, that they have to do for pride? Dos Anjos knows this is what he's going to do. And it's not like Dos Anjos doesn't have a say-so in what goes on. He's got a say-so in what happens in this fight. So he's not going to sit there and let his legs get kicked. Trust me when I tell you this. And being one of these guys I was a Shuto guy, Japanese Shuto guy, which the vast majority of our takedowns come off of opponents kicking us or trying to punch us. So you're letting them come in, you're letting them commit, you're letting them throw the strike just so you can get in and take them down. Dos Anjos is of the same ilk. He knows exactly what he's doing. I just think he has more ways to win.
Yeah, I agree. So I like you like Dos Anjos. Yes. I like Dos Anjos minus 118. I like it to not go the distance. That's minus 175. And then if I like Luque, then the only way I like Luque is to win by a KO, TKO, or DQ at plus 240. That's it. I don't like anything else that Luque can do. But if you're trying to get a little bit of plus money and you don't like all of this chalk, then you might want to throw that on Luque because that's the only way he wins. He's not going to win going the distance, not with someone like RDA. Should be a fun UFC 78. And we'll talk a little bit more as we get into the future about Holloway and some other stuff. Look, I want to thank Dan Angell, our senior contributor at Godzilla Wins. I want to thank, as always, John Fredericks, the Godzilla of Truth, for another great show. We missed Nate this week, but we'll see him next week. And of course, as always, Patrick Assalone, our fight guy, and Sheriff Clarke. 8:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. 10 a.m. every Saturday is the Godzilla Wins show. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next week.